Welcome back to the Matt Return podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Allen.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
And we're back after Penn State went to Michigan, as did you. Came out 2-0, another shutout against Michigan State. Dominated Michigan with the exception of a couple matches. And just showcased really why Penn State is the top team in college wrestling right now. Michigan had a fully ranked lineup. Michigan State was not so fortunate, but there were still some good battles in that dual meet as well. So Kaleb, I guess just to start off overall, what did you think of this weekend?
I think we saw again how dominant Penn State is, even in the best collegiate wrestling conference. It wasn't even close. I mean, you had several guys out of the lineup in that Michigan and Michigan State duel, and both of them, it wasn't even close. I mean, even Terrell nearly took down a ranked wrestler at his weight, despite wrestling up an entire weight to fill in for Starachi on that Friday night. I just think it speaks volumes to, again, I think we talked about this last week, the depth. It's just what Penn State's able to accomplish under Kale with just having your backups are almost just as good as another team's starters, despite them being ranked. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you talk about Terrell Bearclaw. His ranked wrestler wasn't just like a number 30 guy. It was the number 4 guy at the weight class, Shane Griffith, who has won a national championship. And when you have a guy that's wrestling up a weight class, it's and even last year he was 157 pounds. So he's really, for that match, he's gone up 2 weight classes in the last year or so. It's just really impressive. And then obviously David Evans, he wrestled an unranked guy, and we saw what he could do at the tournaments earlier this season. It's just, I think once again it just speaks to your depth, or to their depth, and really how, I don't know, I feel like it's really just a race for second kind of at this point.
I saw a projection the other day that Penn State is projected to go, I think, 70 points above the next highest team at nationals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not even the same stratosphere at this point. I mean, we were at nationals last year, and we were trying to calculate the final team points the night before the final day, because we thought that Penn State had already mathematically clinched, and they hadn't yet. But that just speaks volumes that you might not even need to wrestle the next day, and the final day. You rest 2 out of 3 days, and you might already win the national championship.
I mean, talking about last year, it was borderline that way as well. I think they clinch it in the first session of that last day.
Yeah, it was the first session, because I think Iowa needed to win out, and Penn State needed to lose out in all their matches.
And Iowa
or
had to
something.
pin everyone. But going back to this year, we could see there's still a lot of time to go, and God forbid, the worst case scenario happens, with what happened to Shane, to another guy. But right now, I think it's really not even close, and I think we've seen that now. Penn State's shut out 2 of their last 3 opponents, and the opponent they didn't shut out was a fully ranked Michigan lineup that they still only allowed 2 wins to. One was by pin. Aaron Nagao dropped a spot. But yeah, I think another storyline specifically out of this weekend was Mitchell Messenbrink. I mean, on Friday, he beat Cameron Amin 12-1, which was Amin's worst loss in his college career, even if you adjust it for the 3-point takedowns now. And then he turns around, has a little bit of a back and forth with number 10, Caleb Fish. And then really after that first period, it really wasn't close. I think really we've been talking about these 2 young guys, Braden Davis and Tyler Kasak, since January, since the Oregon State, it's still January, but since the Oregon State duel. But I think really Mitchell Messenbrink has been making a name for himself the last couple of weeks.
I know you kind of almost forget to bring him up, because you kind of forget he's also only a freshman. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, so he's still a little bit older than those 2 guys, but he's had an incredible year. That first period is the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that he's looked uncomfortable all year, and it didn't even matter. He still majored fish. At the end of the day, like you're having a guy who's, or all three of them, they're going out there and wrestling guys who are in their fourth, fifth, sixth years of collegiate wrestling because of all the COVID years in red shirts, and it doesn't matter. They're hanging with them on the mat and beating them. It's
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like, I don't feel like it's really a surprise. He was a U20 world championship or world champion in 2023. But he really didn't wrestle last year, so I don't think, at least on the folk style stage, I don't know what we really expected. I think I expected, a top guy to come out of him because, again, U20 world champion is not an easy feat at all. But I think really at that weight class, outside of David Carr and Keegan O'Toole, I really don't know like who he might struggle against. And to think he's like still outside the top five. Penn State has 8 of the 10 wrestlers in their lineup now in the top 5, and he's not one of them. And he's been arguably, the most explosive, the most impressive, at least last weekend. It certainly bodes well for the future.
Yeah, because if you look at, you might be worried about losing guys like Carter and Aaron Brooks to running out of eligibility in these next few years. But like we've seen over these last few weeks, it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because those guys are both insanely talented. But moving forward, the future's in good hands. I guess is what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, and I think even the way he pushes the pace, like, I feel like he always just starts out quick, and he got it done in a majority of ways. I mean, I know we put out a film review piece, and I was kind of watching it back. He, double leg, ankle pick, like he was doing everything, and it's really early on. Usually, or sometimes you see people try and feel each other out at first, and then on top of that, he did face some adversity. He was losing to Kaleb Fish for a little bit there on Sunday, and then next thing you know, you blink and it's 18-8 for a major decision.
Yeah, I was live tweeting the match, and I looked down to check a score, and I looked back up, and he had scored 2 takedowns in that small fraction of a second.
Yeah, and I think moving on to Maryland, I mean, I think really there's a case for another shutout. Penn State has the higher ranked wrestler in every weight class again. I think the closest one is 149 pounds. K-Sac is number 12, and the Maryland guy's like number 14. But again, I feel like even though K-Sac didn't wrestle last weekend, wasn't due to any redshirting things or anything like that, as Cale Sanderson kind of told us he'll be ready to go this weekend. At least that's what's in the projected lineup. He's still kind of on the rise. I feel like he's been rising through the rankings, kind of like Braden Davis did, and now Braden Davis is top 5. So whether or not that's the case with Tyler specifically, we'll see. But that's I think really the closest match that could happen this weekend.
I mean, they've had 4 Big Ten duels now, and they've shut out 2 of their opponents.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's also an argument to be made. You're facing a team with a losing record in duels, a losing record in conference. I mean, this is probably a match where some guys might get a day off. I would expect to see Carter back after being sick last week. Same with Tyler. They both should be back in the lineup, but there might be some rest in other weights. I mean, this match won't be close. I mean, we talk about that every week. I mean, it's when you're wrestling a team like Penn State, where are you going to get the wins at? Usually, if somebody's resting, or if you just happen to pull off one upset. Like I know Bernie had that. He got upset a couple weeks ago, and then obviously Aaron this past weekend. So you kind of just gotta hope you get lucky. I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess those two weren't really, like, they were upsets in the rankings, but those guys were still, like, like close in rank. Like Bernie was second, and Trey Munoz was sixth, and then Ragusan was sixth, and then Aaron Nagel was four. I think one guy to look out for against Maryland, one Penn State guy is Levi Haynes. He's had to grind some of these out. These last few dual meets, he had to come back against Oregon State. He had a war against Michigan State's Chase Saldate that took like 2 Sun victories, 2 tie breaks before he got a reversal with literally 1 second left.
Yeah, they went out of bounds with 7 seconds left, and I thought it was over. I was like, there's zero chance that this match ends in a win for Haynes. And he came out, got that reversal. They looked at it for a minute, and then the officials confirmed it.
He's got the number 33 guy, Michael North. But I still feel like that's something to watch. Maybe try and see him dominate a lower ranked guy. The guy he took 2 tiebreakers against, Saldate, was 21st, and the guy he struggled against at Oregon State wasn't even ranked at all. And he had to come back in the third period. And that, I'm not saying like, oh, Levi Haynes is like losing it now, but I think it's certainly something to watch for him to kind of put distance against some of his opponents here. And Sunday will really be kind of an opportunity to do that.
Well, there's been issues with that at 157 all year with guys getting upset. I know, like Peyton Robb, he took a loss last weekend. I mean, the weight seems like it's a little more wide open. I mean, until further notice, I would still say like this is Levi. It's Levi's race to lose. Yeah. But he has looked a little shaky in a couple of his duels this year.
If we're talking about open weight classes, 125 pounds is certainly been that. Braden Davis is top 5 now. Not saying he's going to be upset, but he's got a guy who's 3-7 on the horizon. So as open as that weight class has been, I believe he's actually the only undefeated wrestler at that weight class left, at least in that's ranked. He's 12-0. So we'll see how he does against a really outmatched opponent on Sunday.
Yeah, 125. It seems whenever someone gets up to number 1, they just come crashing right back down the week after. So
I saw a comment that was like, I hope Braden doesn't get number 1, so he just doesn't lose. But who knows? All of this, the rankings really don't matter until March. You see it every year. Some guy has a Cinderella story. We talk about March Madness in basketball. In wrestling, it's more March Madness. That was a corny pun. But, there's always upsets, and right now they're just perfecting their craft until then. So I think now we'll move into our fan-asked question. I put a question out on Twitter, and the only response was Joe Tooman saying, who would win in a wrestling match between me or you? I want to hear your take first. Give me your reasoning. Or your honest answer. Like, if you say, Zach would win.
I don't know. That's such a tough question to ask. I feel like I'd have a chance, but I'm not sure if I could beat you. I mean, I don't know. I'm not
I have the reach. I like my chances. I'll just put that up there. I don't know if you have a brother or not. Do you have a brother?
Yeah, I do.
How old is he?
He's in his 30s.
Did you wrestle him growing up, or?
Not really. He was like he was a decent older. I'm like the second youngest, and he's the second oldest. So it's like.
Well, then are the rest sisters?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My brother's 2 years younger than me. Shout out Jacob Allen, my brother. We would just go at it in the living room, like to the point of my parents yelling at us, just wrestling. So I think that, combined with the reach. I do think you probably are stronger than me. I just think I'd be able to get to the legs, the ankles.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'd be quick enough moving around.
So my final answer, I'm going with me. I don't know if it would be a major decision, but I mean, you can say your 2 cents. Give me your honest answer.
I don't. I honestly don't know.
I'm not
I think
gonna be
we're pretty. I
offended.
think we'd be decently matched. If we should say if we get to like 2,000 likes on the video, we'll actually do it.
Yeah, 2,000 likes, and we'll bring the cameras to Rec Hall and settle that question. So you're going with it's up in the air.
Yeah, I would say it's up in the air, but I think you have the edge. I definitely think so.
Wow, I honestly didn't expect that. So you heard it here first. I guess the streets have me winning that. But I could certainly see the other side. But anyways, that was the only question we had asked about us. Thank you, Joe Tooman, for asking that. Certainly, it was fun to answer on here. But yeah, that's all from us. I think we'll say 75 likes, and we'll hit the mats and decide who wins. But for now, we'll be covering Penn State's dual meet against Maryland on Sunday, even though it's on the road. We'll be watching from home. We'll tweet live updates on our Twitter account at TDC_wrestling. And we'll be back next week to film the next episode. Once again, I'm Zach Allen.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
Have a good one.